What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Movie Emporium's spoiler-filled discussion / ending explains of Scream 2021. This time this film is directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillett. Now, before we begin, if you like this channel, awesome, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium, hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome, hit that like button as well as comment below on any video you watch, including this one. So as I do with every ending explain / spoiler discussion, I do want to give a word of warning, especially if you love Scream. Please watch the movie first, then come back and watch the video. Also, I'm going to do a quick non-spoiler review, just give my overall thoughts on this movie, and then we will, go into the spoiler discussion. So Scream 2021 is, of course, the newest film in the Scream franchise. It is, of course, the 5th film in the franchise, and is the first film to not be directed by Wes Craven, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago. But this is a film that follows the same trajectory as the other Scream movies. There is a killer in a Ghostface costume who uses a knife to kill people. Characters in this movie could be the possible suspect, and it also brings back, of course, Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox, and David Arquette as Sidney, Dewey, and of course Gale Weathers. And with that said, it's a movie that you suspect everyone. It could be Dewey, it could be Sidney, it could be the person that you're looking straight forward ahead on the screen. You don't know until the very end of the movie when the killer is revealed and they, do their motives and stuff like that. But it's also a movie that has a particular purpose. This is a movie that really follows the substance of what Scream is. It tells a story that really follows the mythology of Scream. It goes into some really interesting lore of the Scream mythology, and is very much a movie that really focuses on what Scream is as a product, a project, a situational movie situation. And it really is an interesting way to present a movie that has had 4 films. As we know, the first film was very much a commentary on, movie watching and how we're affected by news and the world around us. Scream 2 is about the copycat. Scream 3 is about, of course, the relatives and the brothers and stuff like that. And Scream 4 is the person that we are related to, the possible suspect. It's always been about that kind of thing, and this movie is exactly that. But where it goes into, I can't really spoil because that's a spoil commentary. So with the directors Olpin and of course Gillett, as we know, they directed the really popular Ready or Not, which was a fun, entertaining film that had some really creative ideas and did it really well, had a great antagonist, had a great protagonist, and just did a really nice job of doing something kind of unique in the horror genre. And so with them coming in to do Scream 5 or Scream 2022, it wasn't really that surprising. The surprising thing is that they wanted to do another Scream film, which I know they're profitable movies, but it's one of those franchises where I think it ended pretty well on 2. I think 3 and 4 are not that great, but I think what this story did was it really kind of finished the whole idea of Sidney Prescott's story, but they found ways to continue it, and here they are doing it once again. But the worry that I had is they're going to do a story and it's not going to be that great, or it's just going to tread the same ground, and I just didn't know what to think. And then the reviews came out for it and it was like, oh my god, this is incredible, this is a worthy sequel. So you know what, I got excited. I really wanted to see this movie. It was coming out in the middle of January, which is always worrisome, but I think it got pushed back because of the pandemic. So in a non-spoiler sense, before I get into the spoiler territory, what did I think of this movie? They were right. This movie's fantastic. It's a great entry into the Scream franchise. It is a worthy sequel and is all around a great film that Wes Craven, if he had been alive today and had not directed this movie, he would have been proud of. He would have been proud of what the 2 directors were doing, how they were paying homage to Wes Craven himself, and how this series, this franchise, has always been about, the ideas of the world around us and how they push that story forward, how they bring in, these 3 main characters, these 3 legacy characters, and how they use them. I love the surprises. I love the commentary. I just love what this film represents. It's much more than a straight up slasher film. It's a film with a message, which is what Scream has always had, what Wes Craven and Kevin Williamson have always presented. Then you bring in James Vanderbilt, who worked on a couple of the Spider-Man movies, and you just have a strategy for success. It really is a great little film. It brings in some great new characters, and it really does justice to the franchise. It really does. It does well-rounded characters, some really fun and laughable moments, and some fun, scary moments. The kills are very much in line with the Scream franchise and do a really nice job. And the three main characters, the three legacy characters, really represent why this series has gone on for so long and why it's successful like it is. The chemistry's there, the energy's there, and they're just having fun with what they're doing. And just overall, this, surprisingly enough, might end up in my top 10, even though it's in January, of the best films of the year, because it really hones in and is really a love letter to what Wes Craven and Kevin Williams had created back in the original Scream in 1996, which is pretty crazy to think about. So with that said, that is my overall kind of non-spoiler take of this film. I think it's fantastic. I think it is definitely the, if I were to if I were to do a rankings, it'd be 1, it'd be Scream 22, of course it'd be Scream 2, it would be Scream 4, and then Scream 3 is the 5th film, as rankings of what I feel like. But if you're a Scream fan, if you love this franchise and you're looking and you're worried about what this franchise is going to do, leave the worries at the door. You're going to love this movie. You're going to love where it heads, and you're going to love where it eventually concludes. So that's where I'll leave it for my non-spoiler review till I get into my spoiler section. But definitely, if you love this franchise, check it out. So spoiler territory. Just let you know, this is your last warning before I get into the nuts and bolts of the film. 1, 2, 3, here we go. And so Scream 2022 is in essence a kind of meta type movie, a meta type movie, where it takes the original concept of Scream, which was about two individuals who really were kind of messed up by their home life and messed up by the ideas of the movies, of the horror films. They were very well knowledge and that kind of stuff, and they had the Scream woman, the Scream queen, which was of course Sidney Prescott. And in essence, what ended up happening is that idea became very popular because of Gail Weathers, her book, and then the eventual sequels that kept coming out, and they got worse and worse and worse, as horror movies do. And there's a nice little running joke, or not really running joke, but there's a nice joke in there where, because it deals with toxic masculinity and toxic fandom, there's a joke about the director of Knives Out directed Stab 8. Now, as we know, the director of Knives Out directed a Star Wars movie, which caused a lot of conflict, a lot of controversy. It's a very much commentary on how much of a problem the fan bases have gotten since not only Disney bought Star Wars, to what happened with that, to the DC comic, situation, to the Marvel situation, and how everybody's fighting back and forth. You could look at video games. It's just a constant back and forth of toxicity that doesn't need to happen, and that's what this whole movie is about. It's about that idea and concept of how we take things too far and how that farness just goes out of whack and out of control. But it's still a slasher film, so it's still dealing in, as one of the people said, and I'll talk about the person in a second, it's a requel. It's like reimagining the sequel, or reimagining, because people got really bent out of shape and thought, this isn't my movie, which was Stab 8. They want to take it all the way, the killers want to take it all the way back to the original and create their own sequel, which I thought was really fascinating because of the whole Justice League thing, the Zack Snyder thing. I'm just making examples, but this is exactly what it's trying to do and trying to tell. And you can see the writers and directors of what they're trying to form and why they get to the conclusion that they get to. But this movie opens up like the original movie, but in a different sense. It has a really funny joke with the phone, which is a landline phone, which is non-existent at this point, but is a nice homage to the original with, of course, Drew Barrymore's character. And it takes place with this character named Tanya or Tara or whatever name, Carpenter, who's played by Jenna Ortega, and she's an individual that has the ability to lock her with their phone, the doors and stuff like that. And she gets a call from, of course, the killer who, masks his voice and stuff like that. And in essence, she is attacked like Drew Barrymore, but she survives. She gets stabbed and all that good stuff. And this is when we're introduced to, of course, Melissa Barrera, who plays Sam Carpenter, who's Jenna Ortega's sister in the movie. We're introduced to Jack Quaid, who, of course, plays Richie, who's the boyfriend. And in essence, what ends up happening is the story plays out, the killers are after him, the friends are all suspects, as we learn, because this is that type of movie. But the big revelation that happens in this movie is not even the killers. The killers are almost not really that important. This movie relies on who Sam's lineage is, which is a really fascinating thing to go on, because as we learn throughout these movies, it always seems like the relative, the person that was part of the situation from the original movie, seems to be the killer in some sort, some portion of the family, some portion of Stu's family or Billy's family, all that good stuff. But this takes a twist. It takes a turn where very early, probably 20, 25 minutes into the movie, we learn that Sam is holding a secret. her father has left. She left, her sister, Tara, and she comes back, to see her sister, but we learn that Sam, who is having visions of Billy in a really bad CGI faceover, we know it's Skeet Ulrich, but it's really badly done to make him look younger. She starts telling a story of Billy, who basically got someone pregnant in high school, which sounds very much like Billy. And who is that daughter of Billy? Sam. That was a holy crap moment. I saw it coming as soon as I saw Billy in the reflection, because she's having mental disorders because of what happened. And she knows now that stab, she's kind of a lineage and stuff like that. But I was like, holy crap, that's a great motive, because she is, in essence, the protagonist of this movie. Sidney Prescott and Gale Weathers and, of course, Dewey are really just kind of side characters, to be fairly honest, and that seems like a logical step because they're much, much older. It feels like you need to bring in some new blood in here. It's very much like what Scream has been doing for the last few years, but that is interesting because it really dives into the depths of, like, is she the killer? Will she end up killing? Will she be able to move from her past, from what her father did? And will the effects of what's going on now really mess her up? And you start seeing kind of the storyline play out. You know, the kind of concepts and ideas and stuff like that. You find out through characters that these individuals that are Tara's closest friends are, in essence, people that have lineage with the original characters. Now, the character introduced in Scream 4 is the Sheriff Hicks character, the Marley Shelton character, has a son named Wes, who of course is like an homage or something like that to Wes Craven. You know, he's very much, played off that type of situation. But we have her, and then we have, in essence, Randy Meeks, who was Jamie Kennedy character, died, but his sister, who was actually in one of the movies, pops up in this, and she has 2 kids, and they're twins, and they're very knowledgeable, and they very much take after Randy in the essence of, they are basically, in essence, talking about this movie. They're the ones that talk about requel, and the female twin, Mindy, really kind of just focuses on the idea. So she was like, if you're going to go get a beer down in the cellar, make sure you have a person with you, that type of thing. I thought that was a really clever, not only homage to the Jamie Kennedy character, but a really nice touch to this kind of overall meta story that's going on. Sadly, Deputy Hicks, or the Sheriff Hicks, and of course her son Wes die, which is really kind of sad because, she was of course a main character in Scream 4. But it brings in, of course, back the first character, the legacy character, of course, brings in David Arquette as, of course, Dewey. As the story plays out, like I said, some people, like I said, are being killed and so on and so forth. And it leads to the hospital sequence and leads into the other holy crap moment where basically Tara has been given her own hospital wing because they're afraid that she's going to be attacked by the Ghostface killer. In essence, because the Sam character and the Dewey character, they travel quick because they know what's happening. And of course, Tara's in the middle of the hallway and, in a wheelchair trying to like survive and stuff like that, and then eventually being attacked by the Ghostface killer. Sam and of course Dewey make it to the hospital, and Sam rescues Tara, and they knock out whatever the Ghostface killer. And then, as these things do, you have to have one legacy character die. It's just the unfortunate nature of how these types of series go. So Dewey's like, I'm going to make sure he's dead, or she's dead, or whoever it is. He's going to shoot him in the head. And he gets a call from Gail, who's now in Woodsboro, doing reporting and stuff like that. And she's there to see him, but she has to do a job and stuff like that. And of course, the Ghostface killer kills Dewey. Dewey is now officially dead in this series, which is really sad, really depressing. I hate to see him go because he's such a linchpin to this entire series. But like I said, when it comes to what the series is doing with the meta storyline, you kind of see where this is going to end up going. So he's killed by stabbing him in the front and back, ripping them all up. And it's... It really stinks. It really is. But it's a good kind of way to propel the story forward. Sidney Prescott, who is now married and has kids, finally comes to Woodsboro to finally confront this killer and finish the story. And it leads to this final conclusion where Abby Freeman and, the 2 twins, the Randy Meeks twins, are in essence having a party. and they're having a party as a memorial for Wes and everything that happened to him. It's very much a remembrance for Wes Craven. It really feels like that with the whole concept of what ends up happening. And what I love about this is the two twins. One of them is, worried that his girlfriend or whatever is the killer, so they kind of break up, and he goes out, and he's attacked, of course, by the Ghostface killer who's there to kill him and stuff like that. And it's really, you think that he's gonna be killed and so on and so forth. And then they kind of mimic some of the original kind of content with the original Scream movie with Randy, and they're showing stab, and Mindy, of course, is on the couch in the same position as, of course, everyone else, and Sam, Tara, and of course Richie have to go to the house to get an inhaler so they can leave Woodsboro forever. Well, the Ghostface killer comes in, attacks Mindy, and of course, Sam goes over and tries to help her. But what really is unique and really is interesting is not the fact that the revelations of what happens, it's how those revelations are played out and the concept of the meta story that is being played out. So as we learn, it's not really surprising that Abby Freeman is one of the Ghostface killers. She has pretty much set herself up to be one of the Ghostface killers. It just was really obvious. You could tell from the start that there was something really off about her. The idea of that one guy, the stalker guy, she really had a problem with him, of course, and she attacked him and killed him, so like that. What's really interesting is it plays out as it does. Everybody is either stabbed or shot or killed. Tara gets, of course, they assume that Tara is, of course, the one of the other killers, and she's wrapped up in the closet, so on and so forth. And that's when Sydney, and if you've seen the trailer, Sydney and, of course, Gail come in, and basically what happens is like in the original movie when, of course, Stu and Randy come up to the porch, there's that whole idea and concept of what's going on there. But that kind of happens with the Abby character. But because, Sydney and Gail have been through this before, they know it's a trap. Abby, of course, shoots Gail, so Gail goes down for the count. And Sydney enters what we end up finding out is Stu's house. I kind of got the gist that it was Stu's house at the very beginning, but basically what the movie is trying to do is play into the idea of recreating the original movie but making a sequel, bringing in the killers and so on and so forth. So what ends up happening is, in essence, these killers, the first one we think, of course, know is Abby. Sydney's going after him, and then she goes up and she starts shooting the doors. And, of course, the Ghostface killer calls her and stuff like that. She gets really bored. It's a really funny joke, really funny commentary on how many times Sydney has been through this before. But she, of course, shoots Richie in the leg. Richie's been kind of throughout this movie just kind of wanting to leave Woodsboro, just kind of wanting to be away from it. And basically, they go down the steps, and in essence, this is when Richie is revealed to be the other killer. He brings the gun. He stabs, of course, the character that is Sam because, the whole Billy Loomis thing. And in essence, they're taken to the kitchen like the original movie. And this is where we get the most meta commentaries where in essence, they are the toxicity. They are the culmination of what toxic fan bases are. They're the, the toxic male masculinity that you see on the internet, or the toxic masculinity, or the toxic, group of individuals that you see everywhere in Twitter and YouTube and Facebook and every kind of social media. It's those people that these two individuals are. They're really not surprising to be killers because of just their nature of who they are and how they act and how they seem so suspect, and the fact that Dewey actually was very pinpoint on about Richie. They're not really important as the killers. Their important nature, and this is the ending explains, their important nature is everything that they saw in Stab 8 is everything that is a problem in today's culture when we are so focused, for instance, on Star Wars: A New Hope, which is, Stab, the original Stab in this movie. But when they make sequels and they make other sequels that people don't like, and especially the hardcore fans, that is when the nature of them, back clapping and stuff like that, and posting the really negative comments and the death threats and so on and so forth. So they're creating their own film. They're creating a new film that is taking over of course, Stab 8. They're creating their own new content. And it really is just that. It's just that in a nutshell. It's that simple. It's about individuals who can't comprehend the fact that this is not their product. But because they're serial killers and they are this is a slasher film, they do it in a very meta sense when it comes to the slasher genre. But I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was extremely well thought out and very well done. And that would have made Wes Craven proud because of the simple fact that, you know, a lot of his movies are very meta about the subjects he's portraying. Yes, he gets a little off the boat and off the rails later on in his career, but that original Scream movie was exactly what this movie ends up talking about in a much broader, much more serious sense. These individuals are very disturbed, they're very out of place, very out of whack, and they just can't see the fact that this movie, though they are hardcore original fans of the original movie, has become something they don't want, they don't like, and they're going to do it what they want and what they like. And you know, of course they die because Sydney, and of course, you know, Sam kills them, which is really interesting. In the long run, that whole idea, just using the kind of same concepts of the original film, is more just to talk about that commentary of the toxicity in the world that is fandom culture in a lot of aspects, and I love that. That's very much a progression on what the original movie did, and I just think that's absolutely brilliant. I really do. You know, that's what I love. What James Vanderbilt and Gillett and Olpin really were passionate about. They were passionate about what they've seen. The fact that they add Rian Johnson, who they don't name in the movie, but they add Rian Johnson into the whole Knives Out and the whole idea that he did Stab A. It's just referencing the fact that Knives Out was a great film, and everybody hated The Last Jedi. Me personally, I enjoyed The Last Jedi, but that's just me. But that kind of stuff is thrown throughout the whole entire movie. Getting rid of legacy characters will make people mad. You know, the fact that Dewey gets killed will make people sad and mad, but that's what they're aiming for. They're aiming for a specific sense and purpose of how insane the culture is today, and there's nothing better than that. Like I said, it ends exactly like it should. It ends with, you know, everybody surviving. The fact that they kind of made Billy Loomis a little bit more favorable is really interesting, but it's also Sam gets her last, you know, revenge on Richie, which I thought was kind of cool. And then of course ends with a woman in a yellow suit like Gail giving commentary to the news about this story, and we see, of course, the house. It ends exactly in its nutshell like the original movie did, and I thought that was perfect. And of course does the whole Scream, introducing the characters and the actors and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, like I said, this is a movie that really does the commentary nicely. It does it very well. It presents itself in a really interesting and fun fashion, and it's still paying homage, and it's still being true to what Scream was always being, which is, like I said, is that meta commentary on the world that we live in. And yeah, that's Scream 2022. Like I said, I would not be surprised if this ends up in my top 10 of the year, because I love it so much, or at least honorable mention. We'll see how the year plays out, because it's only January. But like I said, as you've seen now, I'm sure you've seen the film. I'm interested to see in the comments below, what was your overall kind of opinion on how the movie represented. If you didn't like this movie, that's perfectly alright. It's one of those things where I felt like it really did justice. Otherwise, yeah, if you like what you see on this channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button, and as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.